Tell who to refresh? The people in Spreaker?
We are back, folks. I'm very sorry for that. Spreaker decided to give us technical issues. If you're listening now, go ahead and refresh and get back in the chat room. All right. So we have 30 minutes left of tonight's show. And you guys still with me?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I am. I think we lost Cole.
We lost. I think we're the only two. You're right.
Brent.
Yeah, we're the only two. Well, technically the only three.
Yeah. Let's get Cole back in here.
That's okay. I get in arguments with myself all the time. Funny thing is, I don't do it between two people. I do it with three. Yeah.
I was going to say, I take different sides, and I could argue with myself all day.
Hey, you're Gemini, aren't you?
No. What am I? I'm an Aries Taurus cusp.
Oh, well, same dang thing.
Right. Might be even worse.
See, I've got a glitch. I've got a secondary birth date. So I'm actually, technically speaking, I'm a Taurus area, a Taurus Leo cusp. Which, by the way, well, I was born a Taurus, but when I was 20 months old, when I was 5 years old, I walked out of the morgue. It really changes the way you look at life, and definitely destroys your confidence in doctors' diagnoses.
Just a little. It was Navy doctors, wasn't it?
No, it was Air Force.
All right, Cole, you back?
No, for the moment, no.
All right.
He shouldn't have hung up.
Well, he did.
So I want to actually end the show with, for the last 20 minutes or so, we shall...
Oh, what's up?
There he is.
Oh, cool.
Hi.
Hey, cool. You came back.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
So I'd like to hear from our veterans for about the last 20 minutes. Where do we see the country as veterans? Do we see our veterans' issues improving or getting worse? What do you think?
Okay, that's really hard because considering what is going on politically, I see so many people pitted against each other. The focus isn't really on veterans at all and progress.
It's not. I agree.
No, we have stalemated by arguing with ourselves. And that is the best way I can explain it without
what I want to bring in, too, is Seth's question earlier. Do we see this country going to a civil war or a police state?
You want an honest answer to that, or you want me to lie to you to make your listeners feel good?
Right.
Honest answer.
You're heading for a civil war if you don't, and this applies to both the states, and quite frankly, the states, Canada, and China all have the same problem. If the people don't start working together, and this is going to sound really backwards, but ignoring what the politicians and the media say, if the people don't start working together and start showing pride in their neighbors, in their country, you know, it's heading for a civil war.
Mm-hmm. And I agree with that. So, real quick, to Trip Scott, when do you think the flag patch will be turned back to stars on the left of the patch instead of the right? So, you know, and Cole, you did good with the history. So, the reason the flag is backwards on the military uniform is, and your historical cut and paste was perfect. Basically, the stars are facing forward as we're going into battle. Because we have fighting stars.
That's a good explanation. Marines don't wear a U.S. flag patch on their shoulder.
No, that's Army. That's Army.
Yeah. Yeah. So, no, that's a good explanation.
Makes total sense to me.
The rule is that the blue field of stars should always be in the highest position of honor on the uniform. That position has always been the right shoulder with the flag's blue stars facing forward.
Yep.
Okay. Excellent.
Yep.
When
will it go back to normal?
Back to...
Well, technically we're at war with terror. I don't think they ever stopped the war with terror.
Okay, I was going to go back to the previous question. I think secession of the states is potentially viable. Alaska, Washington State, Oregon, and California collectively wanted to make a West Coast federation. There's been a lot of talk about Eastern Washington seceding from Western Washington. That's just here locally.
Seriously?
Texas. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I heard about that
There is a coalition of Eastern Washington separatists, I believe is what it is called. You guys could Google it. Back me up or disprove me on this, but
there's also
you're right.
There's also been a rumor of them trying to of those ones trying to connect with BC and Alberta and potentially Idaho.
Yes, depending on your views. Now, Seattle has controlled. Don't even get me started on can of worms. Let's get that sound bit.
Well, here's the thing with Eastern Washington. There was a senator in Spokane who, oh God, he used the Bible to. I can't.
You remember that can of worms thing?
Yep. He made a Christian. Not statement, but basically trying to bring religion into government, and that ain't going to work. So I believe that's where your separatist is going to come in.
Well, so the thing, it's long-standing with Eastern Washington and Western Washington because you have heavy, like super left liberal types in Seattle.
Right.
No offense. You know, you have diehard Republicans on the east side because you have landowners, you have people who are defending their rights. Seattle, you are in such a concrete jungle, you forget what is needed to survive on property. I'm a gun owner. You know, I'm north of Seattle. I'm a gun owner. I have property. I like my rights.
We live in the mountains. What are you talking about?
Well, right? So, I mean, I kind of need my firearms. And Seattle alone passed our current gun legislation. Washington State was the only one in the midterm elections to have anything gun-related on the midterm elections, and it passed. It passed.
I remember catching a blurb of a small town, and I forget where it is, whether it's in Washington or Oregon, but it's right down in that area. And it's just a little town, and they did a beautiful commercial about 3 years ago where they said, okay, you can buy a property here, but if you're going to buy a house, you must have a gun license. And then they turned around and they said, at the same time, they said, and for any of you that are planning on being criminals, understand we only have one officer in the city, in the town. He works from 9 until 5. On Monday to Friday. So if you're stupid enough to break into somebody's house, don't come crying to me that you got shot.
Right.
Did I mention I liked Switzerland?
Yeah.
I don't know. It is like required. Every person in Switzerland has a gun and has gun training
and uses it regularly.
And do you know they have the lowest crime rate and the lowest death by gun percentage per capita in the entire world? I mean, I'm like,
well,
I don't know.
Surprising. I mean, in all fairness, and this is the thing people don't get. Anybody going into the military theoretically learns how to use a gun.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I'm a firm believer that if you want to have a gun, knock yourself out, because I've yet to see a gun kill somebody if somebody wasn't hanging on to it.
Right?
No, you can put your gun on the porch and guarantee nobody's going to die.
I have a video for you.
It's like I keep telling people when they start yapping about gun registration and banning guns and what have you because they're dangerous. Well, right behind them, or actually right in front of them, start pulling cars off the road, because there's a more deadly weapon.
Yeah.
No kidding.
What was it, 2 years ago, there was a terror attack in Berlin, I believe, where the guy jumped into a truck and drove it through the Christmas market. And here in the States, was it this year or last year that the terrorists jumped into a truck and drove on the sidewalk?
Yeah, for
that was just last year.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, anything can be used as a weapon. I don't need a firearm to kill. Most veterans don't.
I could use a pencil as a weapon. I kid you not.
Mm-hmm. You can use your knuckle as a weapon.
Yep.
Exactly.
Credit cards in the right person's hands are absolutely deadly, never mind the finances.
Yeah, you don't.
I was actually told as a teenager that being charged with assault with a weapon can be a toothpick for anyone.
Yeah.
And I was in Canada, and it because I was charged with that, and it was for a glue stick.
A glue stick?
I'm gonna.
Well, you should have done that.
I'm gonna put this out because some people that think they're big and bad, and they want to fight. And if I get in a fight, if Megan gets in a fight, I know Brent's not here, but if Brent gets in a fight, anyone that's got PTSD that gets in a fight is going to go to jail because we are seen as weapons. If you have military training, you will be the one to get in trouble for going to a fight.
Yes.
So
actually,
and yet,
so hold on.
Go ahead.
I have something very legitimate to say about this. Dianne Feinstein from California actually included in a paper back in 2011 that every veteran should be considered a homeland terrorist because of PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, and she almost wrote it as they know and they've experienced stuff, and therefore PTSD is new. She basically said this is a new thing, negating people who've survived real accidents, domestic violence, also suffer PTSD.
Yeah,
However,
civilians
military
can suffer
veterans.
PTSD.
Exactly. And I have experienced PTSD in both civilian, quote, air quotes, civilian life, as well as service life.
Mm-hmm.
So you look at both of those. However, because I'm a veteran, she thinks I'm at a higher risk to commit crimes against my nation. I'm a veteran. I serve this nation. Do you think I would harm it? My oath was to protect and serve all threats, domestic and foreign. Domestic is the key word.
The thing is,
so she's flipping the script and saying these guys are the domestic terrorist. I do not appreciate that.
Not the slightest, because yes, I will absolutely agree with the idea that being a military vet, if you suffer from PTSD, far more likely to go off the deep end if you're threatened.
This is a perfect time, real quick,
Yeah.
To bring in my last point, and that is the Marine that shot up the nightclub in California, because there are
Just
people
recently
on the internet that are making him out to be the victim. And I'm sorry, I've got PTSD. I have no desire to go shoot up a nightclub. So him shooting up a nightclub, no, don't blame him and his PTSD.
No,
PTSD may have been a trigger with
PTSD.
that. But he had far more issues than just him having PTSD and going and shooting up a nightclub. You know, making him a victim takes away from the family members that lost family in that shooting.
Well, that's just it. I mean, you know, the fact he's got it, I do feel for him. But I suffer from PTSD myself. And, you know, the sad reality of it is people that suffer from PTSD, they aren't known for going looking for the trigger. You know, they are certainly, you corner one and they go into a blackout, you know, into a PTSD attack, they are far more likely to hurt somebody. But I had the displeasure of having to help somebody out that suffered from it. We were going through the grocery store. He was a total stranger. And somebody dropped a bottle of pickles and it shattered.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he nearly crawled underneath the shelf, looking at his screaming for everybody to go to cover. You know, and trying to talk him out from underneath the grocery shelf. That's what PTSD does to people. It doesn't cause them to just walk out if that's the only cause.
Right. Exactly. And, you know, I don't get it sometimes. Yes, PTSD. I have a hard time sleeping. I have a hard time with crowds and whatnot.
Oh, yeah.
But I do have weapons. My weapons do not leave my property unless I'm hunting or if I'm going on the mountain, and that's for self-defense against bears, cougars, that kind of thing.
Or hunting.
My weapon, you know, and I think that's why I have a hard time. Concealed carry, yeah, that's fine. But some of these people that walk around with a pistol strapped to their hip, walking into a store, I don't know what your training is. So I'm not comfortable with that fact.
Well, yeah, exactly.
And
no, the unfortunate part, you know, when you're dealing with PTSD, number one, I see way too many people getting diagnosed with it that don't actually have it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and don't get me wrong, I firmly believe, like, the reason we found out the hard way, I suffer from it, when I was in a hospital for too long, and the elevator took too long to go off. And it took them 45 minutes to get me to walk 30 yards maybe, to get me out of the hospital. Because I couldn't function. Right. Now, I've watched people that have said, oh, I suffer from PTSD. And I'm looking at them going, no, anxiety, yes, but not PTSD.
Yes.
You know, big difference. Very big difference.
I have both, and I can tell the difference between both.
Right.
I get it. I find it fascinating that you could manage to actually sleep. See, I'll go to bed. Well, it's 3 o'clock in the it's 3 o'clock in the morning now. It really is. I'll get a couple hours of sleep if I'm lucky, and I'll be up and on the go again.
Right.
Because every time I go to sleep, I get to see what I watched when I was a kid. That's fun.
Wow.
I've got a sixth sense of fun, apparently, by the way.
I feel like we haven't. PTSD is not a new thing.
No, it was called
No, it's not. They've
Shell Shock.
changed the name.
Yeah, it was shell shocked in World War II.
Name.
1,000-yard stare.
Yep.
In Vietnam.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we've lost accountability.
That I agree with.
And
no, the problem is they've softened it, because now anybody can be diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder.
Oh yeah.
Anybody.
Yeah,
I get in a car wreck, a fender bender.
Accountable.
Yeah.
No.
See, they didn't start treating. They diagnosed it, no problem, but they didn't start treating it until the Iraq War. Because I was diagnosed. Correct. My PTSD stems from Somalia. Somalia was pure hell. I don't talk about Somalia much.
No, given.
But I'm telling you, in '93, my whole unit came back from Somalia. Somalia was actually a humanitarian aid mission. And as soon as our plane landed, bullets were flying. It turned straight combat. And my entire unit, no exaggeration, but when their ETS came up, pretty much my entire unit got out of the Army. And we all went back in. In '97 is actually when I was diagnosed. And they said, yep, you got PTSD. Have a nice life. I didn't get treatment. I didn't get medication. I didn't get nothing until 2007 after my 2 tours to Iraq with PTSD.
Well, I can understand the problem with giving you medication, but getting you somebody to talk to would have been a nice idea.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't happen.
No.
I have never talked to somebody.
I had a great therapist in 2007 that I saw until 2010. And he's the one who got me on the road. And I saw him until about 2009, and he thought I was ready for immersion therapy. Now, for those
that's not a good move.
He said I was at a plateau, and for those that aren't familiar with what immersion therapy is, it's when you actually have to sit there and talk about your experience over and over and relive it over and over. Well, when you're talking about seeing dead bodies and you're talking about losing patients, that's not a good place to be. And I snapped. And I actually went to a psychiatric ward. And from that point, he said, you'll have PTSD for the rest of your life. You will have to be on medication for the rest of your life. Don't ever let anyone give you EMDR or this kind of therapy ever again.
That was sort of what I spent 20 years with a shrink, and thank heavens I had one that actually had a brain. The moment he found out about it, he looks at me and he goes, we have a massive problem. And we spent the next 15 years trying to figure out how to get me to cope with it. Mm-hmm. Good news, I can function. Bad news, talking about it or walking into a normal hospital will trigger it.
Yeah.
Needless to say, going to a hospital when I have a heart problem is not an option.
No. And we're coming close to the end of the show. So
this could go on for a few more hours.
We could.
I don't think that works all that well for a lot of people, but I'm going to be up for 2 hours anyway.
You know what? Nah. Next week is Roundtable.
Woohoo!
I was going to say let's have a veterans discussion next week too, but we were actually going to start a veterans show. Markham and I were, and just talk veterans issues, but it never happened. We were planning that like 2 years ago, and it never happened. Because we could go on to the homeless, veterans homeless issues. We could go on to the fact that we lose 22 soldiers or veterans a day to suicide.
Exactly.
We could. There's issues we could bring up for days.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you could turn this into an extremely controversial circuit, because the moment you start going there, you can go straight into the other side of it. which boils down to what the media is doing or not doing, what the churches are doing or not doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
we won't go that. We won't go into that one.
Another can of worms.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where's that can of worms thing?
Yeah. Right. Can I do a public service announcement real quick?
Of course.
Okay. This is for our local listeners in Washington. The Linden VFW was broken into last weekend. The weekend before Veterans Day, post 9301 was broken into. Basically, vandals. There's no security footage or anything, no viable security footage. They were broken into, and they caused over $2,000 worth of damage to the property with broken doors, broken windows. They robbed the storage that they were actually going to send to veterans and service members overseas. Things like baby wipes. They've been featured on Cairo 7 and I believe Como. Como did a story. Cairo 7 definitely did a story because I watched the recap. But they are asking for donations or any type of volunteer work. For local listeners, possibly look into it. It was the VFW up in Linden. And yeah, the weekend before Veterans Day, they are not sure who broke in, but it's that time of year where they were prepping the Christmas packages to go overseas for service members, and everything was taken. And they have extensive lists on Facebook and all these news medias. It upset me greatly to hear about that. Being as it's local, I want to utilize this airtime and, just throw it out there. It's personal to me as a veteran, especially with the foreign war element. But to go through and take things such as baby wipes and beef jerky, hand sanitizer, socks. I mean, really?
Conservatives.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I have another word.
Yeah, me too. That's the first clean one that came to mind.
Yeah.
Hi.
See, Coop, I do listen when you tell us not to swear.
For those of you listening, you can probably go to their website and find out how to donate in any way if you don't mind.
Oh, yeah.
I will be going there right after this.
Cairo 7 is a great one. Facebook, there's a bunch of posts. Linden VFW Hall, and that is post 9301.
All right, and thank you for that, Megan.
Yeah, it was impromptu, but I felt the need.
Yeah.
Can I say one thing?
Of course.
To all our service members out there that have ever served, thank you so much. You keep me and my family safe, and it means so much. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. To all the service members that are out there right now, stay safe, come home.
And I'd like to add just a little bit more to that and say thank you so much to the people that have legitimately tried to get into service and for whatever reason weren't able to. That effort is still muchly appreciated.
Absolutely. And when I say service members, I also mean to the families that gave up their sons, daughters, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters. Thank you too.
Absolutely.
That in itself is a sacrifice that we can never repay.
Yeah, families serve too.
They do.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, wow, time has flown as it always does. I want to thank our crew tonight, R. Keith Andrews, our FMP alien race specialist. And make sure you check out his 2 new books he's written. Watch his YouTube channel. Cole Wegleitner, FMP culture and lore research specialist, and owner of Statement of Sound DJ Services. and our MC for tonight's show. Brent Dodge, United States Navy. Megan Gehring, our F&P security team and national team of the Missing Persons Division and U.S. Marine. And Seth Kinsey, Winnie was here, of Dark 30 and the S4 Conspiracy Specialist. So our music came from the creative mind of Cole. Look forward to more new intros from him, and Stephen Gill of Twisted Image, Twisted Studios Department for our closing music. As always, you can catch us on The Fringe every Saturday night at midnight PST and KSVU 90.1 FM. Saturdays from 10 to midnight. So, next Saturday, November 17th, is our November Roundtable, where we bring blind questions to our panel and give our opinions and thoughts. Right. So with that, y'all have a good night, and remember, without you, there would be no S4.